Hi friends, in Planet Earth Dating, it's Sunday, May 15th, 2016. I'm a Joseph soul speaking from the Lynn life, and we have an adult Phil in the Jamie body mind. We haven't yet completed the investigation to see whether or not it is the same Phil or another level of that soul stream.
That's true.
But it is an adult Phil. And we have other teammates in other dimensions. All of us are subatomic to someone, and most of us are in the physical. We're going to go with our foundational assignment for this part of the experience, which is to restore the access into the smaller subatomic, to do what is ours to do right now in all dimensions, to restore the access into the smaller subatomic. And with that, the formally videoed portions of today's efforts begin. And then straight up for a consistent source of significantly higher vibration. And there's the deep space feeling.
That's true.
What do I know? I know that these bodies serve as bringers of messages.
That's true.
And what did I notice? We have noticed that basic training, that level of the smaller subatomic, seems to be reflected in this body with signals around the ankles.
That's true.
And that green piece seems to be represented by signals around the knees.
That's true.
And what would be the obvious next conclusion? That the sea level zone, which is larger subatomic level than green piece, but smaller subatomic level than this level, which has been referred to as Earth and its environs, and it's also referred to as control zone.
That's true.
Sea level zone probably would be represented around the hips, which is a major chakra area, and if that were the case, then probably the heart chakra area would be where control zone, this level, is currently being represented.
That's true.
In which case, these signals about the back of the head would not be referring to control zone at all.
No, that's true.
They would be referring to the next larger level up that probably is the level that I have come from.
That feels like my level.
It does. It feels like our level, doesn't it?
That's true.
It does. It's bigger than the level that these people refer to as Sheldon's level.
That's true. It is bigger.
I can look down into the smaller subatomic from the level that we come from, and I can see Malcolm, actually. Malcolm was on the same level as Sheldon.
That's true.
And I see Malcolm is off the midline, off the central axis.
Yeah, that's true.
What now, in order to reestablish this access into the smaller subatomic? Well, what do I know? I know that the kind of crisis call that we answered had to do with Greenpeace closing. And
that's true.
That those bubbles of truth from Ra's records in February, and the Ra that they refer to as our Ra.
That's true.
Those bubbles of truth from his February records helped an awful lot, and there's still more bubbles of truth, and that I was incorrect when I said that Ra's records stopped being usable back in December. That was completely wrong. I think it's possible I didn't want to acknowledge what was being said.
Yeah, I think it's really likely that I didn't want to deal with whatever was in those bubbles of truth after December point. Oh, and what I know is at the end of December was when Malcolm's level first became apparent to Team Awakening, which means that then their awareness was getting closer to the level where we were, and they were getting closer to seeing what was going on with us.
Mm-hmm.
And that's possible that's why I didn't want to see it, because maybe they were starting to get messages about things that are directly related to the lives that we were living in the larger dimensions. And when it doesn't feel personal, it's fine. You can listen to all kinds of intense messages for somebody else. And then when it's about me and people like me,
it's more
we
challenging.
don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
That's true.
Well, let's work these bubbles up through Greenpeace. I'm
That's
sure
true.
of that. I'm sure that when we start with who they call our Ra's records in February, and we start to work back in time from later February to earlier February,
Yeah,
there are
that's
more
true.
big bubbles of truth, and we can just pulse them up, and they help that Greenpeace constriction release.
That's true.
Whew. And then if we move back into January, there's definitely
Big truths.
Big truths.
That made me kind of sad when I touched them.
Very sad. And then moving earlier in January.
Very
this is
sad.
Extremely sad. And right around New Year's, it's just horrifyingly sad.
That's true.
It feels as though there was a big deadline around December 31st, and our level's presences apparently did something really bad to interfere with that.
That's true.
And we are the ones who are responsible for that. We, at our level, did that bad thing. And at the time, our frame of reference was different, and we didn't think about it that way. But we can now see that it was a really bad thing to do. At the
That's
time,
true.
it didn't seem like a bad idea.
No, it didn't.
Probably we were not yet accepting the reality that the subatomic levels have equally vibrant life forms, equally full and rich lives, equally valid search for truths, equally high vibrations.
That's definitely true.
And so we felt that we had the right to do what we did, and it was a mistake.
That's true.
I can see that now. Let's pump up those bubbles and see if we can begin to correct the mistake. What was the mistake? The mistake was an error in thinking, and it was very bigoted,
That's
reminiscent of white prejudices in the 60s in the South,
That's true.
which was during the Civil Rights Movement. And what do I know? I know that we're having a subatomic rights movement, that's what's really going on as a major part of this Search for Truth effort. It's a subatomic rights movement.
That's true.
The rights of the subatomic should be equal to the rights of whatever level we're operating in. And what do I base this on? Somebody is asking. What I'm actually basing it on is how the amateur videographers respond when we ask them these questions. And they are at much larger levels, and they say things along the lines of, ants are ants, meaning it's all the same to them. Our
That's
level,
true.
even though it's larger than the subatomic levels that are smaller than our levels, it's just like we're the carpenter ants, and
That's
those
true.
subatomic levels are sugar ants, and it's really clear to the even larger observers up above that we're all the same.
That's true.
So this is a civil rights movement, a movement for the rights in the smaller subatomic to be equal to the rights of the larger subatomic, who are also smaller than somebody else, in an eternal chain to oneness.
That's true.
It's a crown opening feeling,
I have a crown opening feeling and a lengthening feeling.
and less itchiness in the back of the head.
Less itchiness in the back of the head.
We're all the same. And we're all held accountable, and we're all being observed in every moment. And all we have to do is look up, and those red video lights are on right now, as they are always on. I've never looked up and noticed them being off.
That's
Once I
true.
started to see them, every time I look for them, they're there.
That's true.
That's not to say that I always remember to look for them, but when I remember to look for them, they're there and they're on. I see how this bigotry is like shells on a beach 50 years ago, shell upon shell upon shell upon shell. Just big stacks of shells, big piles of shells, how it used to be when ocean life was abundant. There were just mounds of shells. At the waterline there would be big mounds of shells.
That's true.
Well, and there would be all different kinds of shells together. There would be tiny little coquina shells and the big conch shells even.
That's
everything
true.
in between, from tiny to large, just shells. And the smaller ones would settle down underneath the bigger ones. The bigger ones would be on top.
That's true.
And that's how it is for us. We're all just like shells on the beach, all of us together. And there are larger ones and smaller ones, but we're all the same.
That's true. And to someone walking along the beach, they just say, that's a pile of shells.
That's a pile of shells.
That's true.
And just the fact that the bigger ones are on top has to do with the physics of the situation.
That's true.
Not that the bigger shells are inherently superior.
That's true. I think that's the point.
I think that's the point.
It's just physics.
Right. And what do I know? I know that the signals are all on Greenpeace.
That's true. All the big arrows pointing to Greenpeace.
Yes.
I see it.
And we've noticed how we haven't been getting the result that we expected to get when
That's
we've been
true.
drawing up the kids from the coal mine, so to speak, from down in expansion zone.
That's
and
true.
sending them up above to ask questions. Nothing's really been happening.
The arrow is still pointing to Greenpeace, though. I see the arrow.
Well, let's just pump this bulb
That
syringe
feels really good.
with the intention to move it through that constriction at Greenpeace and all the way up to a consistent source of significantly higher vibrations. I wonder what it looks like when a mountain range wakes up. Does that mean that there's tectonic movement? Does that mean that there's volcanic activity?
I think it
What does it
depends.
mean to have a mountain range wake up? It has to involve seismic activity.
I think so.
What's being highlighted is that house in Citra
That's true.
that should be in a certain family, and that one member of the family lost the house in foreclosure.
That's true.
And what we're supposed to do is go talk to the other members of the family and try to get them to see that they really need to just buy that house back.
That's true.
And that if they don't see it, then maybe we can buy it.
That's true.
It's completely wrong to just try and buy it out from under them, and that it would only lead to pain and
Badness.
misery for everybody.
That's true.
And that what needs to happen quite obviously is the other members of the family pull it together and buy it. And what would the likely outcome be if we didn't do that? Well, how people react is they resist the opportunity as long as the window of opportunity is open.
That's true.
And then the moment the window of opportunity closes, they say, wait a minute, I wanted to do that.
That's
And
true.
we've seen people do this in dimension after dimension, and it isn't likely that they would be any different.
No, that's true.
So that would just be misery for everyone.
For everybody.
It's really important to try to press them to buy it, buy that house. And if they refuse to do what's theirs to do, then it's okay for us to do it. And that's relevant to this work and to the opportunities that are available to the soul presences who need to be stepping up and aren't.
That's true.
That their window of opportunity is going to close. They're going to regret it. And then someone else will move in. Maybe what we could do is ask if there is a loose on the central axis anywhere up there. Is there a loose on the central axis? There is one. Okay,
That's
will you
true.
help draw our channels up, please, up the central axis? Through you, not to you. There.
does feel better.
It does feel better. Okay. And will you do the same?
Oh.
To look up and ask somebody to draw the channels up through them, not to them. And then ask them to repeat on up the chain. Well, that helps.
That's true.